In this video, I want to talk a bit about painting with history. Now, the examples that I'm going to give are extremely simple, and the more you start working with painting using history, the more you can start coming up with some pretty cool ways to make it do some fancy stuff and really help you out while using Photoshop. So to get started, I'm going to go to File, New, and let's create a new document. I really don't care how big it is, I just want it to be nice and big. So right now I've got 1080 by 900 and something pixels. It's fine, I just need a great big canvas. Then I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to place something into the document. Now, placing allows you to take one image from another file and literally put it inside this current document. So we'll do that, and I'm going to bring in this picture of the koala, which came with the sample pictures with Windows 7. If you don't have this picture, you can probably find it on the internet. I imagine somebody's put it out there somewhere, but you can really use any picture in the world. It doesn't really matter. So we'll go ahead and hit place. And I'm going to make this a little bigger. I'm going to hold down Shift and the Alt key, and I'm going to put my cursor over the corner of this little box and drag out. Now, what Shift is doing is allowing us to scale up uniformly in both. Actually, I'm sorry. Shift is going, well, here you go. If I just hold down Alt, let me do it this way. If I just hold down Alt, then I can scale in both axes, but we could end up skewing the image. If I hold down Shift, we maintain our aspect ratio. So now you know how that works. Let's go. Once we're happy with the size, and I just wanted to get this nice and big, I'm just going to press Enter, like so. Now, if we take a look at our history, now I'm going to open up my history panel. If you don't see it over there in your panel area, make sure you go over to Window and just open up history like so. We have our new document, and we have place in history. Now I'm going to do something else. We're going to hit Control A and then Control X. Now, actually, right now, Control X isn't going to do anything. That's because by default, when you place something in Photoshop, it is brought in as a smart object. Without going into a big long lecture over smart objects, in short, what they are is a reference to another file, and that doesn't help us too much. So what I'm going to do real quick is over here inside my Layers panel in the lower right-hand corner of my screen, I'm going to right-click and go over to Rasterize Layer. And that turns this from a smart object, which again is just a reference to another file somewhere in your hard drive, into some actual pixels located here in our document. And you can see the Rasterize Layer action appear here inside my history states. Now, let's clear this out by hitting Control X, and that just cuts those pixels out. And so we've gone with a new document. We placed in our koala, we selected the canvas, we rasterized the layer, and we cut those pixels away. How cool and how fancy is that? Now, here's some of the neater things that we can do. Like, let's say, I want to remind everybody as well, that if we go under Edit and go to Preferences and check out Performance, I currently am sitting at about 100 history states. So if you have fewer, you may not be able to play around quite as much as I do, but that should not be problematic. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. I can start drawing, and I shouldn't be using a history brush. Let me step back through history with Control-Alt-Z a couple of times and just get the regular paintbrush out, and I can just start drawing like crazy. And we can do scribbles, and we can do a smiley, and we could say, you know, hi. We can do all kinds of things. But what I want to focus on specifically is painting with the history brush. And what the history brush allows you to do is to select a moment in history and paint that down. You might have noticed here inside our history panel that we have this little column of squares next to each state in history. This allows you to choose which historical state you'd like to paint. So here we are with our place history state, which is where we put the koala picture down. If I click on this, and I go to my history brush, not art history brush. We'll talk about that in a minute. So we grab the history brush, which is also the Y key. I can make my brush nice and big and check out what I'm doing. There's a koala's head. I'm literally painting down that moment in history when I brought in the koala. Now, it gets a little bit cooler than that. Let's go all the way back up to where we placed this guy in. Actually, let's go to where we rasterized and then cut the pixels. Strike that. Okay, I know I'm waffling a little bit, but let me go ahead and just switch to where we rasterized. There's a reason. There's a method behind the madness, and you'll see in a minute. Let's say that I grab my regular plain Jane eraser, and I'm going to make it nice and small, and I'm going to erase out a little smiley face in the middle of my koala's nose, which is kind of mean. I really shouldn't do that to him, but it's already done now. So now we can hit Control A, Control X, and clear all those out. We can get our brush tool back out, and I can do some more scribbling. And maybe this is a whole nother project. I've designed something, I've drawn some pictures, and I'm retouching photos, all sorts of cool things. Now we can go back to that eraser state, and you can see where we were, but check this out. If I put my history brush cursor right there, and I start painting with the history brush, so again, hit the Y key, and we'll make that nice and big, you'll notice that I'm painting to this state in history where he had that smiley erased out of his nose. If I switch back over to where we just placed him, we can get rid of those eraser marks. So you really kind of have to think about what's going on in each individual state. It's a very nice way to take some changes that you made earlier on and bring them back out to the foreground by painting them back into place. Now, all of that said, let me jump back over to the brush tool. Now notice, check it out. These history brush strokes are just history points in and of themselves. So I can step back through these here inside the history panel, or of course I can just hit Control-Alt-Z. We can also grab the eraser, and you can make the eraser work pretty much exactly like the history brush if you check the erase to history option. And again, we've designated the place state in history where we put down the koala picture. And so now, as I erase, I am erasing back down to that state in history. And I can switch that over to the point where we erased out that little smiley in his face, and we can bring that in as well. So that's a quick look at just painting. Now there's one more thing I want to throw in, and it's kind of a bonus because it is really just, it's cooler than it is anything else. Not only do we have the history brush tool, we also have the art history brush tool. And this is just the artsier version. And I don't say that with any sort of derision, or at least I hope I didn't. If it came through, then that's totally accidental. What this allows you to do is to add sort of a style to your brush strokes. So check it out. I'm going to set my brush state, so the source for the history brush, back up here to place. Now, as we know, that's where the koala was brought in. And I'm just going to scribble. As a matter of fact, hang on, let me undo a couple times because I want to do this all in one great big scribble. So I'm not releasing my brush from the canvas at all. And you can see what this is doing. So if you just really quickly want to impress, your girlfriend or your mom or, any of your family members who always knew that you had artistic talent, it just never ever manifested itself in any fashion whatsoever, you can totally show them this awesome image of a koala that you just painted, and then if you want, you can get a lot more sort of abstract expressionist about the whole thing. We can switch over to, say, loose long strokes. And we can do the same thing. And you can totally just print this out, hang it on your wall, and just tell your friends, yeah, I call this koala, and look really cool. But let your hair grow out all kinds of spiky and wear little tiny sunglasses, because now you are an artistic person. So that's just a quick look at painting with history. Really, it's all about just choosing some state in history, some moment where something happened that you want to go back to, setting that state as a source for the history brush, and you can turn that on and off as you see here, and then just laying down some brush strokes with either the history brush tool or the art history brush tool. So actually I'm going to switch back over to the regular history brush tool, and then we can start bringing parts of our koala back to life, which looks actually kind of creepy in a way. But that is going to wrap things up for this video over painting with history. Thank you very much.